What a committee hearing this was. It was titled Anti-American Airwaves, Holding the Heads of NPR and PBS Accountable.
Miss Marr, I want to start with you. Just generally, would you say you generally agree or disagree with the following statement? The history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggles?
I would not say I agree with that, sir.
You're not. That's good to hear. It's interesting because a lot of your thinking, as expressed by your public statements, is deeply infused with economic and cultural Marxism. Mm-hmm. Do you believe that America is addicted to white supremacy?
I believe that I tweeted that, and as I've said earlier, I believe much of my thinking has evolved over the last half decade.
It has evolved. Why did you tweet that?
I don't recall the exact context, sir, so I wouldn't be able to say.
Okay.
What
Do you believe that
context?
America believes in black plunder and white democracy?
I don't believe that, sir.
You tweeted that in reference to a book you were reading at the time, apparently, The Case for Reparations.
I don't think I've ever read that book, sir.
You tweeted about it. You said you took a day off to fully read The Case for Reparations. You put that on Twitter in January of 2020.
Apologies, I don't recall that I did.
Okay.
I'd no doubt that your tweet there is correct, but I don't recall that.
Okay. Do you believe that white people inherently feel superior to other races?
I do not.
You don't? You tweeted something to that effect. You said, I grew up feeling superior. Ha, how white of me. Why did you tweet that?
I think I was probably reflecting on what it was to grow up in an environment where I had lots of advantages.
It sounds like you're saying that white people feel superior.
I don't believe that anybody feels that way, sir. I was just reflecting on my own experiences.
Do you think that white people should pay reparations?
I've never said that, sir.
Yes, you did. You said it in January 2020. You tweeted, yes, the North, yes, all of us, yes, America, yes, our original collective sin and unpaid debt, yes, reparations, yes, on this day.
Unpaid. I don't believe that was a reference to fiscal reparations, sir.
What kind of reparations was it a reference to?
I think it was just a reference to the idea that we all owe much to the people who came before us.
That's a bizarre way to frame what you tweeted. Okay, how much reparations have you personally paid?
Sir, I don't believe that I've ever paid reparations.
Okay, it's just for everybody else.
I'm not asking anyone
Seems
to pay
to be what you're
reparations, sir.
suggesting.
I mean, this is only halfway through.
This was
There's
it
2.5
was
more minutes.
satisfying.
This is the CEO of
I gotta
National
say,
Public Radio.
I wasn't too familiar with Representative, what's his name from Florida?
Brandon Gill.
Brandon Gill. He almost has like a, who's the guy, like Columbo, like
Yeah,
playing
bit.
dumb, and it's just like you're
you tweeted about it.
Yeah.
It was great.
It says right here.
Said, sir, I was unfamiliar with your game.
I'm very impressed with how he handled that. Just very low key.
Okay, so you were impressed, and that was low key. Would you like to hear the complete opposite of that?
Sure.
I mean, this lady, Catherine Maher, has that kind of like 80s, blonde villain look to her.
Yeah.
Well, she's CIA, so it should surprise you.
Yeah,
Zero.
of course she's a spook, right?
Okay, so this is our favorite Jasmine Crockett, and I can't believe I have to apologize for this. It's graphic. There's language. So
whatever it is that y'all want somebody to say, and the idea that you want to shut down everybody that is not Fox News is bullshit. We need to stop playing because that's what y'all are doing in here. You don't want to hear the opinions of anybody else, and the Constitution says Congress shall make no law respecting or establishing of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the
gentlewoman's time has expired. The gentlewoman.
What is she talking about?
Therefore,
free exercise
the government needs to establish a media company.
A propaganda machine for cultural Marxism. That's what we need.
It's a violation of the Constitution for you to shut down a government media operation.
That's right. Oh my gosh.
Okay, and then my personal favorite, Bert and Ernie, get brought into the discussion.
Maybe we want separation of media and state.
You're all pushing, I think, doesn't stop there. This, of course, is Bert and Ernie. Now, these two guys actually live together. They're friends.
Oh, no.
They're supportive of each other. Now, that might be triggering to our chairwoman and some on this committee, and perhaps that's also why we're here today. Ms. Kerger, an important question. Are Bert and Ernie part of an extreme homosexual agenda?
No.
Thank you, Ms. Kroger, and thank you for being a good sport. Now, I'm obviously using some humor here, but the fact that we're sitting here today talking about defunding public television is actually not funny.
Oh,
At a time where we can't agree on basic facts, and while the free press is under attack, we need public media like PBS and NPR
too many women did
more
tickle
than
me.
ever. A large majority of Americans say they.
Okay, Josh, who is in charge of making these?
Oh, that's the staffers, you know.
Like the staffers have to go to like Kinko's or whatever, and I got to print out Fire Elon and.
Are you kidding
Alma.
me? At this point, they have their own printing press. Come on, there's no way they're having to run down the street to the FedEx store.
The FedEx store on the hill. Why? Anyway, I could go on and on.
Yeah, they did make Bert and Ernie gay, by the way. Mm-hmm. That's why it came up. And
that was like in 2015 they made them gay.
Yeah, late revision.
They were always the little suspects.
All right. Yeah. All right. So this whole thing is basically like, and they didn't say exactly what it was about. It was just anti-American airwaves or whatever. But NPR actually only gets federal funding for under 1% of its budget. Now I will say that's for like the DC stations. They are like a network of stations. And so if you really spread it out, it's actually 10 to 15% of the network's operational funding. So at this point,
I want to make sure I understand what you said correctly.
Yeah.
You're saying that the Corporation for Public Broadcasting gets approximately 10 to 15% of their funding from the federal government.
So is
that what you're saying?
Basically the way that it works is there's national NPR and then there's all these local affiliates. NPR stations all over the world. Yes. And the affiliates, their funding is like 10 to 15% of their funding. But the national NPR, it's only 1% of their funding.
Seems like with a little merchandising, they wouldn't need any federal government money at all, and they could be independent, and they wouldn't have to worry about who's president.
Exactly. So Yuri Berliner, the former employee of NPR who blew this whole thing up. This hearing really happened because he's a former senior editor at NPR. He wrote a story in the Free Press last year about how NPR lost its way and became a leftist propaganda cultural Marxism machine that reaches 12 to 14 million Americans every week through its news show, morning, what is that called? Morning something. But anyway, he wrote last week ahead of this, he's like, guys, just divest yourself of federal funding and then you can do whatever you want. You can become who you want to be. Just like Columbia could divest itself of federal funding and be perfectly fine and become who they want to be. But they can't let it go. They have to have this veneer of we're a federal agency or we're funded by the American people, so we're for the American people. It's part of their like mole tactic, and it's ridiculous. I was doing a little.
They want the federal imprimatur.
Yes, they want that imprimatur of like, oh, we must be objective because the federal government funds us.
So I mean, I'm on the same page with all of this. I think the moment it was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe how crazy this is when they wrote something saying, hey, you might have seen we're not saying anything about the Hunter Biden laptop story, and here's why. And instead of just reporting on it, they reported on why they chose not to.
They won't report on it.
Crazy, right? Crazy. Like it was, and I actually never really grew up with NPR, any of their shows ever really being relevant to me. I know that some people kind of have a nostalgia for, was it Car Talk or something like that? Like they had a couple shows.
Car Talk. I love it.
So, but my question is, obviously it's crazy. 87 Democrats to 0 Republicans on their board right now. Is there a place for any public programming right now at this point, or should it just all basically go to the free market? Do we feel like we're losing anything
if you really want a bipartisan consensus here, Donald Trump should fire everyone in NPR and replace it with super crazy MAGA heads that you would find not just on like the Fox, but like OAN, and just make it so right wing, and then the Democrats will freak out and they'll call for it to be shut down. Like,
sounds good. Solved. It's a good strategy.
So your answer is no. There's no place for public funding.
I don't see could there possibly be a reason? Maybe, but in general, we're talking about a federal government giving money to a media organization. I want a true free speech. So no, I don't want that. Again, is it worth borrowing money from China to do? Like, no. It's one thing to say, well, we really need an interstate between Phoenix and Las Vegas because we don't have one. Like, that's okay. That's important. But like NPR, like really? It doesn't seem to me that important.
100%.
I think the freedom of information now too, like the lowest cost ever of barrier to get into the media game now probably just makes it obsolete in a way. Like there will always be someone now with the desire and ability to cover any story they want.
Yeah.
Anytime.
We hear about people giving out communist ideas for free. Why should we have to pay for it?
Yeah, but basically like you could get an iPhone and make a documentary. Like that was not possible in the 60s. So maybe there was a time where it would have been necessary, but I feel like it's just not anymore. It's kind of served its purpose. Not in a good way either.
And I think that look, people always point to, Ken Burns in the Civil War and, Ken Burns, America's storyteller. Where would we be without him? And he never would have gotten going if it wasn't for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. You're like, no, if he created a product that was really good and really popular, then he could have found funding. That's how the free market of ideas works. And I think the Civil War, which was sort of his like first big breakthrough piece, that could have stood on its own. It didn't need all of our funding the whole way. So yeah, did we get Ken Burns out of public funding? We did historically, but could we have gotten Ken Burns any other way? Yeah. And did really need Ken Burns to do anything other than the Civil War.
That would fall much more under the previous historical model of how anything got funded. Like you get funded by patrons, even artists back in the day.
By creating a good product.
Right. Yes. A rich person would fund a talented artist and they would make something. That's actually closer to how historically it's been. I feel like the recent trend in terms of state-funded media as a, quote, neutral source is actually quite the diversion. Even from news media, if you think back to the beginning of the country, how proudly different parties had different media outlets, and they would ruthlessly attack each other. But at least they were honest, said, hey, we're Republicans. Hey, we're on the right. Hey, we're on the left. Doesn't matter. So
That's
the veneer of neutrality
mission.
Is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right, to get rid of that.
To get rid of this 20th century nonsense of neutrality in media. Like, hey, lay your cards on the table and then let's talk. Let's fight and let's really talk about what's going on.
Hey, if you like that clip, you'll definitely like the full show. We go live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to tackle the biggest headlines in news, culture, and politics. Hit that subscribe button now, and thank you for supporting the show.